So, unlike Western philosophy, which tends to have this dualistic perspective of good versus evil, of one thing versus another, the Vedic perspective is balance of what they call the operators in the world. This creation operator, that which brings things into manifestation, that which maintains something in manifestation, and then the destruction operator, which causes something to atrophy or fall away, so that a new creation cycle can begin again. One is not better than the other. They are all required for evolution to keep on keeping. So, you need the flower to grow, and then it is bloomed and beautiful all summer, and then it has to fade away so that the soil can rest and earth can begin again in the spring. And so we think of this, in our lives, like we can all get a little out of balance. I'm in a highly creative phase, but I'm going so quick and so fast that I'm not actually able to pour into it the requisite energy or attention to maintain it so that it can actually have an effect. Or am I in a maintenance phase where I'm like desperately holding on to things that are no longer relevant, no longer serving me, no longer are fresh or are helpful? Or is there maybe too much destruction in my life? Or maybe not enough destruction of the old, of relationships that should be let go of, right? And nature is always going to have its way, Nature has a way of getting what it needs, what it wants, whether our individuality is in compliance with that or not. So a lot of spiritual practice of meditation is just attuning oneself, the nervous system, which is the translator, so to speak, between big self and small self in those early years, early days of practice. It's about understanding and being able to work more copacetically with nature, big self, whatever, so that you're not having to be taken along by nature, kicking and screaming, but that you can collaborate, so to speak. And so we talk about revering all of nature, revering even the destruction operators or even the things that seem, because really, again, if we don't want to live in this dualistic good versus evil and ascribe value in that way, that limited way to things, we have to also recognize that while destruction can be too much when it is out of balance, and certainly you look at the world and there are certain irrelevancies that are being taken out, but they're being taken out maybe in more violent or contentious ways than had we as a society had the consciousness, had the wherewithal to make more progressive change earlier, more simply, more cleanly. And you see this, obviously, the cliche example is in the Bhagavad Gita of, Arjuna does not want to go to battle with his cousins, and he says, no, and Krishna keeps telling him, no, you have to do this is for the greater good, it will save the society, the civilization. And it gets to a point where he has to go to war, where it could have been taken care of in much cleaner, simpler, smaller ways, had he been following that impulse to clear out or to make progressive change earlier. And so I think of this idea of, how do I practically revere things, not just that are maybe like destructive in terms of like any kind of physical threat to me or my person, but are the ugly things in life that I'm not as keen or excited about. And that can be out on a walk and sort of just noticing the decomposition of a log and, sending a little bit of honor and wonder and finding the beauty in that as much as like the beautiful redwood or the beautiful wildflowers. I walk around in urban forest every day, and there's so much that many of us don't want to see because most of us don't always have cash on us to give to every person who we meet on the streets who could use it, or we don't always have food or something to give them, but we all have something. At the very least, you have a smile. At the very least, if you don't want to make eye contact with them, it's not safe to do so, you can say a little prayer or a wish for them and send them that love from your consciousness to theirs. Because I think in many ways, yes, while people would like you to buy them a meal or to give them some money and, this or that, I think at the end of the day, like you, I, and everybody else we know, they just want to be seen. And how much they aren't seen because we're afraid that it'll break our hearts or we don't have anything, we don't know what to do. Well, you don't have to know necessarily what to do to honor or revere something because, again, if you do subscribe to this idea that it's all going towards one, that in the final analysis, the cosmic calculus, it all points towards unity and that I am that and that person is me. I am that, tripped out guy on the street who is asking for some help for a meal. I might not be able to buy him a meal every day, or I might be rushing somewhere, but I can revere him and see him. I think about this often because my teacher will often say, if you don't know what to do, maybe in a moment of your life, go where breaks your heart. Think, the longer I've been in this practice, the more keenly aware I've become of two things: of how deep a gift it is to be sensitive to life, because everything can start to break your heart at some point because you are connected to it all. But not in a way where you fall apart, but in a way where, you're just, the fullness of consciousness is ever vibrant and percolating in you. But secondly, it's given me more specific insight into the ways in which, I would love to, however I can, ameliorate the hurt or the quote unquote suffering that's out there. And so a few months ago, I was on Canal Street in New York City on the border of Soho and Chinatown, this like bustling part of town, lots of panhandlers and this and that, and people trying to sell you, fake guitar bags and this and that. And a couple approached me. They were probably in their early 30s, and they were pretty disheveled looking. It seemed to me that they were high on something. And the woman came up to me, and I thought they were just going to ask me for money or something. So, I had just an awareness of that. And she actually asked me, she said, "Do you know where the Target is?" And I love giving directions to whomever because I like to try to be helpful when I can. And I actually kind of had a moment where I was like, I don't, because I didn't know there was a Target in Soho. I kind of was, like perplexed for a minute and was like trying to think, and I hate not being able to help someone, especially when you've lived in the city for 15 years or so. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, well, thanks for just stopping." And she meant it. She was so deeply just grateful that I wasn't blowing her off. She could tell that I just legitimately didn't know where it was. And so when I heard that in her voice, I just well, I can look it up on my phone. And she was like, "Oh, that would be great." I looked it up on my phone. I told them where to go, and off they went. And I hope that they got whatever they needed. But it was just, again, people just want to be seen. You don't even have to have the information for them, but to just stop and give them an honest reply of "Oh, I actually had no idea there was a Target in Soho." That can, you don't even know. Maybe, they went off and it didn't change the trajectory of their day, but it did in some physical sense, because I think that they went off to a Target. So you never really know the little, in essence, free ways that you can potentially better someone else's life by simply seeing them, revering them, honoring them as you would hope to be honored, right? It's that back to the golden rule, do unto others as you would wish they do unto you.